Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Joseph Coleman's in the house. Lance Sexton's in the house. Lance, we were going to have a big call today with SOB telling us what the update was. And how was the call, Lance?
Bob, I, like many participant bankers throughout the country, clicked on the link about an hour ago and got this message from SBA. I mean, I didn't expect them to give us the full SOP, but I was just I was very encouraged and hopeful we would get an idea of when the release of the SOP would occur. And some discussion of, we've gotten a telegraph, Bob, of some of the changes that may be in there. But I clicked on the link and got a message, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, but at least, I mean, we want to know what the changes are for small loans. I mean, that's a key thing, and I imagine they have that ironed out. At least give us that.
Well, and I think there's some of the things they're proposing to change in the SOP have a little bit of have a little bit of pushback. Delaney forgot to tell me to turn my ringer off. I'm not going to blame him. I'm not going to blame him
for the bus. Yeah, no, Lance, that doesn't work here.
Let me turn all my ringers off. But again, we were very hopeful to find out when the SOP was going to be released, and then we didn't find out. So hopefully it'll happen in the next week or so.
Yeah. And look, I understand it's herding cats, so I'm not that. I understand it's a difficult task. I understand there's a lot of people who need to sign off on it. So
yeah, absolutely.
It is what it is. We're not, but at least I guess what I'm saying is if there is unanimity on some of the stuff, give us those pieces as well. But we can't tell you when it is. We do know it's going to be after Thanksgiving. That's what it said. And obviously we will be on top of it. Do we have Jennifer on yet, Joseph?
Jennifer is not here yet, yeah. So we can move forward to some stories.
Okay. Delaney, not only is Lance trying to throw her under the bus, which
she don't feel it.
And she's not feeling well, so hopefully Delaney's doing well. So Joseph, you're filling in for Delaney. This one was interesting. What did Mr. Fowler do?
He made a big error. He was taking funds from one account to another, and he got caught when he tried to transfer $400,000 from one of his clients. He was the manager for the construction loans for Sunmark Community Bank in Georgia, and he would do unauthorized withdrawals for $1,200 to $100,000, and the big one was the $400,000. That's when one of the customers called the bank and said, we probably need to look into this. So the bank was made aware of the discrepancies, and they calculated the loss to be $1.1 million. Fowler repaid $273,000 of that, but he obviously pled guilty, and his sentence is next March. So this is a misapplication scheme gone horribly wrong, and I think once he was able to figure out that he could transfer those funds in between each account, that he got.
Joseph, do we know how much he pocketed personally?
No, I didn't find that, but he did. They were able to make him repay $273,000 and then get the guilty plea. So.
Lance, we need to get a psychiatrist on board here and ask them. I mean, obviously this is empathism gone bad. There's a developer that we're going to run out of money, when instead of making the right decision and just saying, bite the bullet, as you said, your best loss is your first loss. Is your first. What's the saying? Your best loss is your.
The first loss is the best loss, Bob. And in this particular,
go ahead, Lance.
This reminds me of the big recession when there was a ton of construction lending going on. And I mean, I don't know the full story here, but he's moving money from one construction draw account to another borrower. And, quite often, or there were cases back in 08, 09, and 10 when bankers would do that, trying to keep their past dues down. They might have somebody that had a payment due, and they would go pull a draw of someone else's account and pay that payment, and then eventually hope to be able to go back and correct that. And what happens is they do it over and over again, and it balloons, and it becomes a problem they can't fix.
Yeah. And
I don't know that that's what was happening.
That's definitely a possibility, because we see that over and over. Or in this case, it's intriguing that he paid money back. I don't know, maybe it was in an account or something, but it looked like in the press release that they're saying he did not receive that much of a benefit, but he was moving money at the to take care of his customers. And that's Lance, the customers aren't your friends.
Well, I mean, they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
They aren't, and they are, Bob.
Right.
But
there's a line. There's a line.
Certainly, there's a line that has to be drawn, and you can't take money from one loan to cure a problem with another loan. And you're exactly right, Bob and Joe. If you got a problem loan, you need to call it what it is, a problem loan. Don't try to fix it. And again, I don't know that that's exactly what happened here, but I suspect it might be.
Well, I think that's a great takeaway. You can lose a lot of energy and a lot of money and your career by trying to work things out, when it's sometimes you just have to say, hey, it is what it is, and we've got to move to plan B. And
I think this is a great story, Bob, and Joe, because we're heading into a period where small business borrowers are struggling to make their payments, and your past due list, which has been pretty small, suddenly is ballooning. And as an officer, you don't want that big past due list when you go into loan committee and you talk about past dues.
You're right.
But
and for the loan committee and for regulators and for your CPAs, yeah, absolutely.
The problem is you can't fix it this way. You're crossing a line that should not be crossed.
Very good. Mr. Confredo,
yeah.
Let me just sort of, I want to say something. I gave a speech last week, a couple weeks ago in Las Vegas for the National Alliance of Commercial Loan Brokers, and I went through one of my parts of the presentation is what the compensation was for internal SBA development officers, as well as what they paid for loan brokers. And a lot of them are complaining the lenders won't give me over a point. And I say, well, the reason why is because they're vetting you, they're vetting the deal, and they're doing a lot of legwork on that. And that relationship is still a relationship that takes time to develop. And here we have and if you do deals and the bank ends up trusting you and all your deals are good and there's nothing wrong with them, then you can sit down and just start negotiating a higher price. But here we have a reason why the loan brokers are looked upon very poorly. Joseph, what did he do?
This Gary Confredo is the epitome of your problem child. He was under supervised release while he was doing this for a previous conviction. So that's a huge red flag. And the scheme was about 3 years. He was doing everything from preparing false documents, creating false statements, and doing everything he could to defraud Bank of America over $3 million over the course of 3 years. So he pled guilty last week, and he was agreed to pay a restitution of $140,000. He's facing up to 30 years. He won't get that, but it really is your problem child that I think the lenders are terrified of, because he did it over 3 years. He had the right. Everything looked right on paper, but as you say multiple times, you can buy anything off Craigslist. Yeah. So
and this is the lesson
Go ahead.
This is the lesson that gets repeated over and over, guys, especially when we talk about all the PPP fraud that occurred. A majority of it was falsified tax documents, falsified financial information, and this sounds like a broker who was doing the same thing for his clients. And, creating false documents is a serious problem.
Well, it's a crime. It's a felony.
That is correct, Bob.
It's more than a serious problem. So I think it's old. Let's get it. Let's vet them. I think, Lance, I think a 5-minute internet search would have found out Mr. Confredo was on supervised release.
Yeah.
All that information is out there. And vet the loan brokers as you would any new employee, any new business relationship. It doesn't take that long to do that. And trust but verify. Just assume everything. Assume all this stuff, okay, but we're, okay, well, we'll take you at your word, but we're going to verify all this stuff is legit.
Yep.
So I think that's
the Fed. There's one last quote that he called it a revolving door life of crime. So when the U.S. attorneys are saying that about you, I think he was under supervised release. So you ask yourself,
but the supervisor didn't do their job.
Right. Yeah. And it just comes down to pure greed. So.
All right. This one, these personally bother me a lot. Stolen valor is involved in this one. And whenever you have someone who is a stolen valor and they're representing who they're not, it rubs me the wrong way. But what did Mr. Custer do as a Navy SEAL, allegedly? Well, he pled guilty. So what did he do?
Mr. Custer, yeah, he pretended to be a Navy SEAL, which is just a huge, stolen valor is one of the most terrible things you can do. But he was trying to, it was for a horse business in Kentucky, and this goes back to creating false, basically lying on every document that you can submit to a lending institution, and saying that he was a Navy SEAL for his character. I think he tried to use that, and that backfired.
I think he was indicted for that. This is the first one I've seen where they've indicted someone for misrepresenting that they're a veteran. Yeah, because now, so that they're going after those people as they should. Go ahead, Joseph, finish up.
There's not much more to the story. Is that they were able to figure out that the story was not lining up in his business. Obviously he was, he had to forfeit the $300,000, but it was over $1.5 million that he was trying to go for. And I think the main part of the story is that he's just another crook, and he's trying to use the good nature of the Navy SEALs. So.
I want to make one editorial comment. We're covering a lot of this, and I don't perceive that we're seeing an uptick in the moral failings of our society, Lance. I tend to take the other side, is that with much more access to information, this is coming to light so much easier. We've always had a history of Ponzi back in the 20s, and we've had a history of fraudsters. Look, if you study Southern California, the whole thing was built on real estate fraud back in the 1800s. So the difference is now we are we're getting more access to that, and we're getting smarter that, hey, there are bad actors out there, and you ignore that concept at your peril. Go ahead, Lance.
Well, there's so many ways that the world of internet that we are in. There's so many ways that you can check on an individual. I had a fraud case that I was working on recently where I used Google Earth to find their home and was able to actually see the individual I was looking for standing beside his car in his driveway. We're trying to verify where this individual is. So, I mean, there are many resources that you can use now to verify.
It's bordering on creepy, Lance, but go ahead.
Yeah, it is kind of weird, Bob. I'm sitting here looking at the guy in his driveway, but it did help us. So there are resources that you can use to vet people out. Anytime a new person comes into your institution's world, whether it be a broker or a borrower, it doesn't hurt to spend 30 minutes online.
More than you don't even spend that much time. Yeah. But those are very strong takeaways. We're waiting for Jennifer Blooming. I think we're going to have to hold her over until Monday, Joseph, unless is she on?
I've emailed her. I don't know what's
Okay.
on.
Well, we'll have her on Monday, and we'll talk about all the events, the regional events that she's sponsoring and what she is doing. I guess we'll conclude as we're doing our annual hotel financing webinar the first week after Thanksgiving. Lance, that's coming together very well. I'm going to be the lead on that. And things are moving so quickly. What we knew in 2019 threw out the door. What we learned from the Great Recession, well, don't throw it out the door, but I mean, there's a huge difference between what's going to happen in 2023 versus 2021 or post-pandemic. You know, I guess now we're in a post-pandemic world, and the metrics and the attitudes and just all this factors in what we are doing as both lenders as well as consumers.
Well, Bob, and of course, I've said this multiple times over the years, these industry webinars that we do, the data that you get from it is certainly worth the price of admission. And hotel lending can be very lucrative, but it's something you also need
Anything
to
can be very
understand.
lucrative. Just we need to be professionals and need to have some expertise in what we're doing. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Lance, thank you very much. Joseph, good job. Delaney, hope you feel better. And Jennifer, where are you? All right, we'll deal with Jennifer on Monday.
Yeah.
Thank you
We'll catch
today
up
for
with
joining. Go ahead, Joseph.
I emailed her. She emailed us about an hour ago, so I don't know what happened, but maybe she.
I know she had a meeting, and I'm sure it
meeting.
got held over. That's no
Yeah.
worries. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Thank you for joining us today for today's episode. If you like today's content, hit that subscribe button to subscribe to our channel and click that bell icon to get notified about our latest videos. Thank you again for joining us today and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time. Catch you next time.